Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back, and now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So in the introduction to last week's episode, I said that I was going to do a little mini episode this week all about what happened in my Facebook group and how I'm considering moving on, things like that. So for those of you who may have missed it, there was a bit of drama in my Facebook group recently, and I opted to close the group. Now, here's what happened from my perspective, right? I can only speak from my experience and my perspective. In my group, I have always had a set of very strict and specific rules of engagement in our group. And it's the thing that made the group so popular and feel so safe to so many women. The fact that we had rules around no venting, no ex-bashing, no calling other women whore, mistress, slut, even if she was sleeping with your husband, right? It's a respectful, inclusive space. And that we focus on growth and learning for ourselves. It was really important to me that this group not be like every other divorce group on the internet where people just come in and they trash talk each other. They're really mean and nasty to each other. You know, that was another key rule, which is like, it essentially, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. For the most part, women really appreciated these rules and they really, really respected them. In the last few months, as the group had grown just so much, we were over 18,000 members, and it became harder to manage, right? When you've got that many people, and if you were in the group, it was an engaged and active group. This isn't the kind of group that people pop into every once in a while. This is the kind of group that many described as a lifeline. And the very first rule of the group was to do the guides. In Facebook groups, there's a learning content that you can create, which were called the guides. I think they used to be called, they were called something else before. Anyway, it's learning content. And the goal of this learning content is, hey guys, we're all in this space. Let's all get ourselves to the same foundational level of understanding and knowledge of what we're talking about here. So I've been in other groups where, let's say it was like an eating disorder support group where, there was learning content about what do we mean when we say intuitive eating or stuff like that, right? And essentially, the learning content, the guides of the group, are answers to the most frequently asked questions in the group. After running this group for 6.5 years, I've got a pretty solid pulse on what the frequently asked questions are. And so I created free content, free learning content, whether videos, links to specific podcast episodes, some other things, right? I created, or just posts that I had created over the years that answered the most asked questions, such as, how do I tell my husband I want to get a divorce? How do I tell my kids we're getting divorced? Things like that. And so I created the guides. They were very comprehensive. And I think ultimately, the way that I had them laid out in the group for a while was a little overwhelming. And I really take full responsibility for that. I created them as they came out. And then I think I discovered a better way to do it later on in the game, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I think that it was overwhelming to a lot of women to have to sort of come into this group, you're already overwhelmed. You're already feeling like you can barely function. And then I'm like, here, go do this course before you engage with the group. When you have a burning question and you are like, I just fucking need help. So there were a couple things that were happening, which is that I was seeing the same questions asked over and over and over and over again. And my response was always, I answer that in the guides, because I just wanted to keep directing women to all of this content that I already created for them in order to sort of elevate their foundational understanding of what it is that they're going through. A lot of people were like, oh, amazing, I missed that. And they would go and do it. Now, when you join the group, there's a box that says, I agree to the group rules. And it provides the group rules. And the first rule of the group was you must complete the guides. And then we have a setting in there that was like, you can't post for the first 3 days of being in the group. This is so that you get a sense of what it's like to be in the group, how we function, because we don't function like any other divorce space. And it gives you time to go through the guides. So the expectation, and you need to provide your email address. So I email all of this to everybody when they join the group. So the expectation is really clear that when you start engaging with the group, you engage at a certain level. Over time, as I said, as the group grew and grew and grew, it became almost impossible to manage in its entirety. There is no way to prevent people from sharing until they complete the guides, right? That's just not a setting. That was really what I wanted for people, but I couldn't force it in a way. My admin team and I would get frustrated. First of all, we don't want to answer the same questions over and over and over again because it's a waste of our time and energy. Secondly, we've provided all of this. I could not have been clearer about the expectations of joining the group and participating in the group and being in the group. And so we would get frustrated by this. And then one day, a couple of weeks ago, I think 4 different people on the same day posted the question, how do I tell my husband I'm getting a divorce? And I had a moment of like incredible frustration. And I was like, you guys must do the guides. Just do the guides. I created all this free content for you. I've given it all to you. You're not availing yourself of this stuff that I've given to you. And I kind of lashed out in frustration in a way that, I don't know, I didn't feel was all that intense. And I've gotten a lot of messages from people who are like, the post that you made was fine. Of course you were frustrated. However, there were a lot of people in the comments of that post who were like, I didn't come here to be abused. I didn't come here to be yelled at. This is, a Facebook group, a support group. I'm here for community. I'm not here to be yelled at like I am in my marriage. I heard that. And I made two separate apology videos. One of them was a little bit not all that pretty. I mean, it wasn't, I hadn't written anything out. I just got on Facebook Live and I was like, listen, I'm really sorry that this landed for people this way. Totally not my intention. But here's what I did. I also held my boundary and people didn't like that. And then I got accused of not really apologizing. Now, a lot of people were actually literally said in the comments, I'm in tears because I forgot what a real apology sounds like. But I also got people who said, that is not an apology. You're not taking responsibility for the damage that you did. Here's how I feel about this. First of all, I take responsibility for being frustrated and lashing out and venting. One of the rules of the group is that we do not vent. Now, was it just a venting post? No, it actually was a directive. It also was oh my God, you guys do the guides. Please, all of your questions are answered there. Please do the guides. But also it was frustrated and it was perhaps not as gentle as it could have been. So I take responsibility for that. I also take responsibility for the fact that the women in my Facebook group are all in varying levels of trauma. And for some people, just taking the first step up the rung of the ladder and like opening the guides, finding the guides, figuring out what that is, like they literally don't have it in them. It's an executive function nightmare for someone to be told to consume content when they are in desperation and trauma and they can barely function, let alone figure out learning content. And I get that. I really do. And to be honest, those are the same people who are probably not listening to this podcast right now because even this is perhaps too much. I don't know. So I take responsibility for the fact that not everyone can consume the learning content, and that it was also perhaps a little confusing the way that it was set out and laid out in the group to find it. But here's the thing, guys, I do not apologize for holding a boundary that I really strongly believe in. There are 6,842 other divorce Facebook groups on the internet that you can join that are not moderated, that don't have admins with their eyes on it almost 24/7. We've got admins in the UK and Australia who are not holding the group to a higher standard of growth and development. But in this group, I want women to do the work. That's what I want. I want you to be responsible for your growth and empowerment and development. That is one of my top values in this world. I have a very strong value around growth and development, and it is one of my personal values, and it is basically my top business value. And so I'm not going to run a group that doesn't align with my values, personal and business. And so I do not apologize for asking women to uphold the rules that they agree to when they join the group. Now, yeah, does everybody read the rules of the group when they join a Facebook group? No. Do they remember them 5 minutes later? No. But I do remind them of it by email and posts in the group, right? And so at that point, adherence to the group rules becomes absolutely primary. Otherwise, we devolve into chaos. And I'm just not interested in running a divorce group of chaos. That's just not on my bingo card for this lifetime. For me, this was a boundary issue. I have a boundary, which is when you join this group, you must play by our rules. And also, I have to acknowledge that some of the rules are difficult for some of the women, given the state that they're in, the heightened emotional state that they're in. And so for me, this is a yes and situation. I am not a black and white thinker. Never have been, never will be. I will always see the shades of gray. I will always see the ways in which we can say yes and. Yes, absolutely, we have to adhere to the rules of the group, and we can acknowledge that might be hard for some people and let that slide. And where I fell short was in my lashing out in frustration, as opposed to like holding that, I was going to say binary, but it's not binary, just holding that sort of collective space of yes and. Okay? So that is absolutely what I take responsibility for lashing out, for being frustrated, all of those things, and not really being as compassionate as I could be for how hard the rules might be for some people. Now, throughout all of this, I got some really wonderful messages from women, like I said, being like, your post like was not offensive. You're holding a boundary. You're asking people to agree to uphold the rules that they agreed to when they joined the group. You're not. But I also got a lot of nastiness, and most of it stayed in the group. Fortunately, I didn't get a lot of mean DMs. Thank you. But there were some nasty posts and comments in the group. One woman accused me of wanting people to do the guides only so that I could hear my own name repeated in the group, and that this was all about me and not you. I can't even remember the other ones. They were sort of burned in my mind for a while, and then I let them go because, here's the deal. I walk my talk in that I do this work too. And the nasty comments occupied a little space in my brain for a while until I just was like, that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here for, and look, my Facebook group is not for everybody. I'm not for everybody. That's okay. By all means, go find the group that is for you. But if you want to be in this group, these are the rules. These are the parameters. This is the expectation. And like I said, all of the rules for this group and the guides of the group, the learning content in the group that I really want you to consume was for you. I get nothing out of it, y'all. I don't get paid for a free Facebook group. The whole thing is free. It has been one of the free arms of my group. One of the comments that I got actually in another group, it was in Zahn's group, and I just want to shout out and acknowledge Zahn for having my back and being so supportive and wonderful. She just clapped back at people who were saying that one of the comments was that I was leaving women out to dry, that I left 18,000 women hanging, and that I abandoned them and all of this stuff when I shut the group down. And that may be true. There may be some truth to that. But, as Zahn said, Zahn was like, she is in no way obligated to provide free labor to 18,000 women. And she's right. And listen, I loved doing it for as long as I did it. As soon as the group shifted and the tone started to be the kind of thing that we've seen in 875 Facebook groups throughout our lifetime so far, where they were starting to turn on me, and the focus was shifting onto me and how I was running the group as opposed to like the actual what women were in there for. I knew I had to step away. There was there were some hints of cancel culture coming in. And listen, guys, I don't want to be canceled. I don't want to be I don't want to be canceled because I don't want to be taken away from you. I need and I want to be here to support my followers, my listeners, the women for whom this group has been, as you've said, a lifeline. So here's the deal. I so deeply appreciate that this group was a lifeline for so many women. That also concerns me because it's just a group on Facebook. At the end of the day, as helpful as it was, as meaningful as it was for so many, if a Facebook group is your lifeline, you need more lifelines because I shut mine down for self-preservation mainly, and because it was about to become so much more than I'm actually energetically able to handle. I'm not able to be on Facebook 24/7 to be moderating whether people are following the rules. I just am not. And I have a pretty sizable moderator and admin team. But it was overwhelming for all of us. And again, this is a free arm of my business. I also run a podcast, which is free for you. I also have an Instagram, which is free for you. I have an email list, which is free for you. I have to focus on other areas of my business that actually do bring in revenue. I mean, let's just call it like it is, right? Like if I'm spending 24 hours a day on Facebook moderating a group, I'm not able to create programs or talk to clients or make money. Like this is also my business. And then the other danger of a Facebook group being your lifeline is that Facebook can take it away. Think about the number of people on TikTok right now whose entire businesses may get completely destroyed if TikTok goes away, right? What are you going to do? This is why I am so committed to you guys doing the work. I'm handing you the work, whether it's in the free guides or the podcast, like I give you, and my programs, right? So I give you all of the work to do, but you have to do it so that you can become your own lifeline, so that you can become your best friend's lifeline, so that she can become her best friend's lifeline, her other best friend, right? So that we can become our children's lifelines. Like we have to do the work. If we're only just grasping at a lifeline and holding on and not doing the work, we're not actually changing anything. And if we want to change the systems that are at play here, because this is all systemic, we have to do the work. So I have heard all of you. I've read every message that has come in with people, first of all, offering to join as a moderator of the group because it's been so helpful for them. And I appreciate that. I really, really do. I have also heard people saying, I'm worried about the other women. I'm worried. There are a lot of women out there that I'm worried about. And I hear you. I really do. And I'm worried about them too. And I am still thinking about this in many ways, because look, for many people, a Facebook group is their lifeline because they are so financially either disempowered, being financially abused, or just marginalized, and they don't have money to hire me as a private coach, which is expensive, or just even join one of my lower cost programs. By the way, when you join any of my programs, you do get access to my client only Facebook group, which is ironically not very active, but that's because they're actually doing the work. So they don't need the Facebook group as much. But anyway, I want to be able to provide resources at all costs and all levels. I also want to be able to, I also have to do it responsibly. So I'm still thinking about this, guys. I'm not making any promises. If I were to reopen the group, I think it would be different. And I think it would be, it would have to be different. And I don't know how to do it differently is the thing. So I'm just thinking through it. A lot of people have recommended or suggested that I do a low fee paid group, which I think is, in theory, a great idea. In practicality, very complicated. Number one, a paid Facebook group is against Facebook's community standards, so we'd probably get shut down pretty quickly. So it would have to be part of a program, like an ongoing membership program, which, look, it's possible. It's just that if it was really low cost, I don't know that it would be worth the administrative time and energy and, financial output, because you have to figure out who paid this month. And if they didn't pay, or if their card got declined, are we removing them? And if you've got 1,000 people in there, then it's a nightmare. Obviously, if there were 1,000 people in there, maybe it would be worth it financially, but I just don't know that would happen. So, you know what? I am going to attach to this episode in the show notes a little survey. And I will ask your opinion on these things and how, thoughts on how we might be able to move this forward in a way that leaves the support open for so many. Again, I'm also really keenly aware that a lot of the people for whom the Facebook group is a lifeline, people who are not invested, who really just want kind of, free advice, are not necessarily the same people that pay money for things, or that even listen to this podcast. So, there are people who are invested at different levels, and it's fine, right? It's totally fine. There are people who are invested at different levels, and I'm not making a judgment about that. I am just looking at, I have to know what people, as a businesswoman, I have to look at different people's levels of investment and figure out how to serve at each of those levels, if that makes sense. So this is not a crossover thing. This is also a business thing. Like this is a, as somebody who has run an online business for about 12 years, I can tell you that there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes. This is like a whole business model structure situation. So all this to say, that's what happened. From my perspective, people have other perspectives. People think I was mean and a bitch and insensitive and whatever, and they're entitled to their opinions. I know that I'm not mean, insensitive, or a bitch. Like literally the last thing that I am. So I triggered people. I know that. I know I triggered people. And I sincerely apologize to anyone who was triggered by the way that I handled my frustration about this whole situation. And I also know in my work what the way that I handle people's triggers is, you're allowed to say like, ouch, you triggered me. But at the end of the day, they're our triggers. And so we have to be responsible for our own triggers and doing the work to heal those, while also being able to communicate with people around us. Hey, I have a trigger around X, and the people around you should want to honor that and say, oh shit, I don't want to do that to you. Right. And so again, it's both and. This is not black and white. So I deeply apologize for having triggered anyone. And I am absolutely responsible for my own communication in my group for sure. And I fell short in sort of expressing my frustration the way that I did. And I totally take responsibility for that. Thanks for listening. This is probably the last time I'm going to talk about this for a while because it has taken up way too much energy and I've got other stuff I need to focus on, but I am going to put a survey in the show notes. I am more than happy to provide that, and I'll provide a little space for you to make suggestions, I guess. But when I'm ready, I will let you know what's next in terms of the group. If you are really craving the support, the community support, Phoenix Rising has got you covered. There is so much support and recovery in that group, and it's truly amazing. And you get coached by me every week. So I highly recommend joining Phoenix Rising if that is accessible to you. And if it is not, I totally get that. So stick around to the podcast. I've got actually exciting things coming up on the podcast in a couple of weeks as well. So stay tuned for that. I love you, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.